this video, we are going to explore what is meant by primary and secondary radar. So these types of radars are mainly associated with air traffic surveillances. So we know that what is meant by air traffic surveillances. So this is the air traffic control systems working in the airports. So these there will be air traffic controllers who will detect the presence of the aircrafts, and based on their positions they will be controlling the air traffic. So the primary purpose of this air traffic control is to prevent the collisions between these aircrafts and to organize and expedite the flow of air traffic on the ground and on the air. So this is very crucial role in air traffic control. So in air traffic surveillances, there are two types of radar based on their working. They are primary surveillance radar and secondary surveillance radar. So let's explore what is mean by these type of radars. So let's start with an analogy. Consider you and your friend started an expedition through the tunnels. So you were walking through the tunnels, and these tunnels has lots of other ways and other openings. So, so meanwhile you feel very tired and decided to take a break. So in that time your friend continued the travel. So when you are ready, you don't know which path your friend has taken. So it looks like you are not sure whether you have to continue through this tunnel or through this tunnel. So what you will be doing is you will be asking questions through the tunnel. So you want to hear through which tunnel your friend has gone. So you will ask from the entrance of the tunnel, and you'll ask, "Are you there? Are you there?" Right? So if you are getting some replies or some echoes like yes, that means that someone is there, but you are not quite sure if that is your friend or not, because means anybody can answer like okay, yes, I am here, I'm here, even if that can be your friend or that can be your enemy. So you are not sure who is inside that tunnel. But consider the scenario if you have some code words while before you that you have decided before your travel, and you are asking that code word question through that tunnel, and you are getting that code word as the answer. You can be sure that your friend is inside this tunnel. So in that case, you are sure that the friend is inside that tunnel. So that is the difference between the first scenario and second scenario. So in first scenario, you are having a general question and you are getting a general answer. So in that case, you are not sure whether it is your friend or not. But in the second case, you can make sure that okay, it's my friend which is inside this tunnel based on that code word. So that it is the same scenario in case of the primary surveillance radar and secondary surveillance radar. So the primary surveillance radar is same on the same concept as that of the general question. So the primary surveillance radar works on the principle of just echo reflection. And in case of the secondary surveillance radar, it has a code word for the transmission and the reception. So this analogy completely agrees with what is meant by primary surveillance radar and secondary surveillance radar. So let's go into the details of what is meant by PSR and SSR. In case of a primary surveillance radar, we will be having this radar. So this is the primary surveillance radar. So it will transmit an electromagnetic wave, and it will be hitting the targets, and based on the target size, shape and the orientation, it will be reflected back to the radar. So based on these reflected wave, this radar can calculate the range, velocity and the direction. So the range will be calculated based on the round trip time, and the velocity based on the Doppler frequency shift, and the direction based on the rotation of this antenna. So this is the basic concept of the radar. So the primary surveillance radar works on this principle. So this is the fundamental radar concept. So this is the simplified block diagram. Here you can see that the same antenna will be used for both transmission and the reception, and it will be transmitting the electromagnetic wave, and when it is reflected, the same antenna will be receiving that, and based on the duplexer, it will be given to the receiver and it will be processed to get an idea about the target's range, velocity, and the shape. Let's see what a secondary radar is. So this is the secondary radar. So we can call it as an interrogator because this radar will be sending some coded uh, signal to the air. So this interrogator will be sending the coded signal to the air, and when it is received by this aircraft, this aircraft has a system called transponder. So that means transmitter and receiver system. So the receiver will be receiving this coded signal from the radar, and it will be decoding that signal, and based on that the transponder will send back another coded signal back to the radar. So that code will be having the information about the ID of this radar and also the altitude of this aircraft. So our radar will be receiving the ID, altitude, range, and velocity, also the angle information of this aircraft. So that is the working of the secondary radar. So it is similar to the analogy of a tunnel system where we are asking some code words to our friend and our friend is responding to that code word. So we can make sure that this is our friend which is trapped inside that tunnel. So similarly, as this transponder is replying back with an ID, we will get a complete information about this aircraft system. So that is the advantage of using the secondary surveillance radar. So this is the simplified block diagram of the SSR. So here you can see that a synchronizer and display. So this synchronizer and display will be synchronizing with the primary surveillance radar system too. So we'll be having an encoder which is producing the coded signal to be transmitted, and the antenna will be transmitting that signal, and this system will be using different frequencies for the transmission and the reception. So the transmitting frequency is 1030 megahertz, and when it hit on the aircraft, so this is the transponder system inside the aircraft. So when that antenna receives that, it will be decoded, and based on that aircraft, it will be sending back some codes through this transmitting system. So once it is sent back, this antenna on the radar will be receiving that information and it will be decoding, and based on that we will be getting idea about these aircraft. So for the transmission from the transponder, it is using another frequency of 1090 megahertz. So in this case, this SSR works on the principle of the transponder, so it does not receive any reflected signal or echo. So in that case, we have to transfer only less power as compared to the primary surveillance radar. In case of a primary surveillance radar, as it works on the reflected power, we have to transmit a huge amount of power as compared to the SSR. So this is a photo I took from Wikipedia. Here you can see that this straight antennas is the secondary surveillance radar, and this one is the primary radar. So this is one of the photograph showing the transponder inside the aircraft. So this is just a comparison of the primary and secondary surveillance radar. So first one is how it detects the aircraft. So in case of a primary radar, it detects the presence of the target based on the reflected echo. But we know that in secondary radar, the transponder replies with the ID. So in case of primary radar, it does not require any transponder, but it requires the transponder for the secondary radar. And the primary radar works with unknown or uncooperative targets because as it is working on the reflected power, it will be receiving reflected power from any targets. So whatever it may be, like if it may be friend or enemy, whatever it may be, it will be receiving the power from any reflections. But in case of the secondary radar, it is only receiving that coded information. So it does not receive any reflections, but it receives only the coded information. So the primary radar measures the range and azimuth. Here it measures the range, azimuth, altitude, and ID. So these informations will be in the coded signal which is transmitting from the transponder. So in primary radar, we have to use very high power as it is working on the principle of the reflected power. Here we have to use only low power because the transponder is also sending different signal from its system. In case of the primary radar, it has an influence from the rain, terrain, etc. because as it is working on the principle of reflections. And the primary radar is mainly used for the airport surveillance and military detections because in military detections we have to get reflections from a friend or enemy, whatever it may be. So we have to get reflections from everything. So we are using the primary radar system for the military detections. And secondary radar is mainly used for air traffic control because we have to know what is the status of our flight, to control the traffic. So that is the usage of primary surveillance radar and secondary surveillance radar. So I hope you get idea about what it is. Thank you so much for listening.